Welcome to Roh'sCorner, the space where we dive into the world's most pressing geopolitical events with clarity and insight. Episode 1, Unravelled, the Israeli attack on Iran and its global ripples. I'm your host, Roh, and today we're unpacking a seismic development in the Middle East, Israel's unprecedented attack on Iran on June 12 to 13, 2025. Dubbed Operation Rising Lion, this strike targeted Iran's nuclear facilities and military leadership, killing top commanders and scientists. With Iran launching retaliatory drones and global powers scrambling to respond, what does this mean for the region and the world? Let's dive in. First, let's set the stage. For decades, Israel and Iran have been locked in a shadow war, trading covert strikes, cyber attacks, and proxy conflicts through groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. Israel has long viewed Iran's nuclear program as an existential threat, fearing Tehran's potential to develop atomic weapons. Iran, meanwhile, insists its nuclear ambitions are peaceful, aimed at energy and medical applications. Tensions escalated in recent years as Iran enriched uranium to near weapons-grade levels, prompting international concern. By June 2025, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, reported Iran had enough fissile material for up to 9 warheads, though no evidence confirmed weaponization. Enter Operation Rising Lion. On the night of June 12, Israel launched a barrage of airstrikes across Iran, hitting over 100 targets, including the Natanz nuclear facility, missile factories, and military bases in Tehran, Shiraz, Tabriz, and Hamdan. The Israeli military, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, justified the attack as a preemptive strike to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's survival. Netanyahu claimed Israeli intelligence uncovered Iran's plans to build nuclear warheads, a claim Tehran vehemently denies. The operation killed key figures, including Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, Commander General Hossein Salami, Chief of Staff Major General Mohammad Bagheri, and at least 6 nuclear scientists, including physicist Mohammad Mehdi Tehrankai. The human toll was devastating. Iranian sources report at least 78 deaths and 329 injuries, with strikes hitting residential areas in Tehran and Tabriz. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei condemned the attack as a declaration of war, vowing severe punishment. In retaliation, Iran launched over 100 drones at Israel on June 13, with Iraq and Jordan reporting drones crossing their airspace. Israel's advanced defense systems, including the Arrow missile shield, intercepted most, but the region braced for further escalation. Now, let's talk global reactions. U.S. President Donald Trump, Israel's staunch ally, called the strikes excellent and very successful in an ABC News interview, suggesting Iran provoked the attack by stalling in nuclear talks. However, Trump emphasized U.S. non-involvement, stating, "We gave them a chance, and they didn't take it." He urged Iran to negotiate a deal before there's nothing left, hinting at more Israeli strikes to come. Secretary of State Marco Rubio clarified, Israel took unilateral action against Iran, and warned Tehran against targeting U.S. interests. The U.S. withdrew diplomats from Iraq and authorized military families to leave the Middle East, signaling fears of Iranian retaliation. Russian President Vladimir Putin has been conspicuously silent on the strikes, a departure from Moscow's usual vocal support for Iran. This may reflect Russia's delicate balancing act, maintaining ties with both Tehran and Jerusalem while focusing on its own conflicts, like Ukraine. Western leaders, including the UK's Keir Starmer and France's Emmanuel Macron, called for de-escalation, while Saudi Arabia and the UAE condemned Israel's actions, citing risks to regional stability. China's foreign ministry urged all parties to prioritize peace, a neutral stance amid its economic ties to Iran. The attack's timing is critical. Just days before, Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, was set to hold a 6th round of nuclear talks with Iran in Oman on June 15. These talks aim to revive a deal limiting Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. Israel's strike, however, has likely derailed these efforts. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, while defiant, stated, Iran will rebuild nuclear facilities if destroyed, signaling Tehran's refusal to bow to pressure. Iran also announced plans to ramp up uranium enrichment, a move that could further alienate Western negotiators. So, why now? Israel's strike comes at a moment of perceived Iranian vulnerability. Nationwide protests in Iran a few years ago weakened the regime's domestic grip, while Israel's recent operations decimated Iran's proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas. Netanyahu, facing domestic political challenges, may see this as a golden opportunity, as some Israeli officials described it, to neutralize Iran's nuclear threat. The operation also showcased Israel's military prowess, with 200 fighter jets and Mossad agents reportedly operating on Iranian soil. Leaked U.S. intelligence, revealed by a former CIA analyst sentenced in June 2025, may have aided Israel's precision targeting, but the risks are immense. Iran's drone attacks signal a readiness to escalate, and its Supreme National Security Council has threatened to strike Israel's nuclear sites, like Dimona, if provoked further. A broader conflict could draw in U.S. forces, despite Trump's reluctance for war. Iran's threats to target Persian Gulf oil facilities could spike global oil prices, already up 13% post-strike, disrupting economies worldwide. The Middle East's airspace, closed by Iran, Iraq, and Jordan, has grounded flights, paralyzing travel and trade. Economically, Iran's markets have remained surprisingly stable, with the rial holding at 840,000 per US dollar. A Tehran vendor told Al Jazeera, "There's no panic, but we're watching the news closely." This resilience may reflect public fatigue with conflict or hope in US-Iran talks, though the strike's fallout could shift sentiments. Israel, meanwhile, shuttered diplomatic missions and cancelled Tel Aviv's Pride Parade, bracing for Iranian reprisals. The Israeli economy, already strained by Gaza and Lebanon conflicts, faces potential paralysis if Iran's promised thousands of missiles materialize. What's next? Analysts are divided. Some, like Yossi Melman in Haaretz, argue Israel won't sustain attacks without U.S. support, given Iran's deeply buried nuclear sites like Fordow, which survived the strikes. Others, like Michael Knights of the Washington Institute, warn of a multi-day Israeli campaign to degrade Iran's capabilities. Iran's response will be pivotal. A limited strike on Israeli military targets could preserve face without triggering all-out war, but targeting U.S. bases or Gulf oil infrastructure risks a wider conflict. Trump's National Security Council met on June 13 to weigh options, with the U.S. likely to bolster Israel's defense if Iran escalates. The human cost cannot be overlooked. Families in Tehran and Tabriz mourn loved ones lost in what Khamenei called attacks on residential areas. In Israel, citizens shelter amid fears of Iranian drones. The strike's ripple effects, grief, displacement, economic strain, remind us that geopolitics is never abstract. As the IAEA's Rafael Grossi urged restraint, saying nuclear sites shouldn't be attacked, the world holds its breath. This crisis underscores a broader truth: diplomacy, though slow, is often the only path to lasting stability. Trump's push for a nuclear deal, despite setbacks, offers a faint hope. But with Netanyahu's hardline stance and Iran's defiance, the road ahead is fraught. The Middle East, already scarred by conflict, teeters on the edge of chaos. Can cooler heads prevail, or are we witnessing the prelude to a wider war? That's all for this episode from Roh'sCorner. What are your thoughts on the Israel-Iran conflict? Share them with us. Subscribe and keep coming back to keep the convo going. Thanks for hanging out, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.